Good afternoon to all and welcome to this presentation. My name is Arnold Tabong. Today I'll be presenting on how to design an ETL process. First of all, I want to begin with the objective for this presentation. The very first objective is designing an ETL process, and then I'll move forward to look at how to identify an ETL modeling process. Then I'll give a brief description on how to gather business requirements. Then I'll look at the identification of an ETL modeling tool, as well as data profiling tool, and then I'll look at data storage for an organization. Equally discuss about database administration. I'll give some insights on data virtualization. Then I'll also look at master data versus metadata and their relevance to an organization. Then I'll go further to look at data governance, and then that will be it. So the very first thing is the ETL. So what does ETL stands for? This is extract, transform, and load. So this is actually a process that is being used by business organizations to extract, transform, and load data into a data warehouse. So the very first thing is to extract this data that comes from a plethora of different sources. We have, for example, Excel files, we have OLTP, that's online transactional processing, we have HTML files, these are automatically generated files that are made during certain online applications. We also have SQL Server. These are existing data in the data warehouse, or the SQL Server Management Studio database. There are also other sources. This could be Oracle and others. So once the data is extracted using the tools, in this case, we'll see further, we will be using Power BI as a tool, but we can also use SSIS depending on the company for extraction of this data. So the data is extracted and then loaded into the staging database. Now a staging database is this is a database that stores both clean and unclean data. So note should be taken that SQL Server is chosen because it brings in structured data into the database. So once this data is extracted, like I said, at the level of staging database, error handling is being done. This is the process. This is a transformation process. So error handling is done, and cleansing as well as validation. So once validation is done, the data is now loaded into the operational data store, otherwise a data warehouse. At this point, we don't have any fact or dimension tables, but since we have to move further to build a multi-dimensional structure, which is a cube, it's very important to identify a modeling process for this cube model. So in this case, we're looking at the next thing, which is identify the modeling process. In this case, I have identified a star schema. So a star schema is a model structure that has fact table in the middle and is surrounded by dimensions table. So the fact table is linked to the dimension tables using by foreign keys. These foreign keys are related to the fact table through the primary keys, and it's at the lowest level of the hierarchies for the dimension tables. The next thing we'll look at is how to gather business requirements. So at this stage, the organization needs to ensure that it has a business analyst. The business analyst is charged with the responsibility to identify the requirements by identifying key stakeholders for this project. So this could be the end users, different team or heads of different departments concerned, like maybe manufacturing department, human resource, and so on, production. The business analyst needs to have hands-on experience on software development life cycle, and note should be taken that gathering requirement, business requirement is one of the stages in software development life cycle. So at the end of this phase, business requirement document is developed. So this business requirement document needs to be approved by the client, in which case, if not, then the hierarchy of the organization needs to approve this document for the data to for extraction to begin. So this takes us to the tool that will be used to for the extraction of this model of this data. So here I have chosen model Power BI as a modeling tool. So Power BI is a cloud-based analytics that analyzes and visualizes data, and then it creates dashboards. Power BI can be used to extract data, it can be used to cleanse data, and also it is used to visualize data. The next thing I'll be looking at is data profiling tool. So data profiling a data profiling tool is actually embedded in Power BI. So we don't need to go far to look for it. So what you have to do is you click on, once Power BI is open, you click on Edit Query, click on View, and then check the box that says column quality and column profile. You can also check column distribution. You have, as you see on my screen, the ability to view which column is empty, which one is has an error, or which one is valid. This will give you the different percentages and as well as the analysis. The next thing is to identify a data storage. There are different kinds of data storage out there, tons of them, but Cloud SQL is one of the best SQL data storages to be used. So because it brings in structured data, and also it's good to use cloud storage because it handles unstructured data. Of course, there are moments where you have to deal with unstructured data. The next thing is to, we'll be looking at the database administration. So here like I said, the organization needs to have a database administrator who is in charge, who will be charged with cloud SQL database management. He has to manage the cloud database. He has to ensure the backup or recovery plans of the database. He has to collaborate with IT department to update the software. So the data virtualization here, actually, like, it's different from data visualization, so you should take note of that. So data visualization is all about presenting reports that has already been cleansed using charts, maps, and other visual icons. Meanwhile, a data virtualization has some three key elements that needs to be taken into consideration when actually we are implementing it. So data with these key elements involved zero replication, abstraction, real-time access, and agility. So actually, data virtualization is an approach to data management that allows an application to retrieve and manipulate data without requiring technical details of where it is stored and how it is formatted. The different key elements, which, like the zero replication, here I'm talking about data that does not move or copy. So the data doesn't need to be moved or copied. Instead, it stays where it is. Abstraction here refers to the business users. It means that business users can access the data without concern about where it resides. Real-time actually means that as source data is updated or changed, the data is available immediately agility here. I'm talking about changes where changes can be made without impacting the business. Data virtualization is important in an organization because it facilitates universal semantic layer across multiple consuming applications. So the next thing we look at is master data and metadata. So master data is a comprehensive method to define and manage an organization's critical data. Meanwhile, metadata is data that describes other data. So this is the both are relevant to an organization because it is good to have to be able to describe other to have a data that describes other data. For example, author dates, date created, and then the date modified. These are very important aspects to be considered when in an when implementing or when designing the ETL tool. So the last thing is data governance. So um, data governance is the general management of the availability, usability, integrity, and security of data used in an enterprise. There are some key things to be considered when implementing data governance. This is business data steward. The business data steward actually is the custodian of the data. So he describes, what kind of metadata is to be brought into the data warehouse, whether structured or unstructured. Business data network determines the flow of data or documents within the organization. Data architect, the architect is charged with the responsibility to design the data. And the data quality, we are talking about the you know the kind of data that comes out at the end of the entire data transaction. So this is where I come to the end of this presentation, and I hope it helps to give someone out there some laudable information. Thank you for being part of this presentation, and have a nice day.